Welcome, guys. We have a really cool episode today.
Yo!
I could sense it coming.
I always have to.
Yeah.
That's always my role at the beginning of the show is to like be like, yo!
That's why I paused after the sentence. I was like, it's
Thank you.
coming, it's coming.
Thank you.
It's been a while since we've done a wisdom traditions. It's been like 4 months. And we were just talking over the other day. I think we were actually doing a Discord event. We were doing a Discord event the other night.
Yeah.
And we just threw up an impromptu poll with like the 60 or 70 people that were in there. Like, hey, do you guys like wisdom traditions? Do you like spirit science? Do you like these segments? And it was like an overwhelming yes.
Yeah.
So we were like, all right, well, we got to do a wisdom tradition.
Yeah.
And we talked about it. And something that I personally have been like really fascinated in lately is Mithraism.
Yes.
You're agreeing that I've been into it?
Yeah. I'm just backing you up.
You're vouching for me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know I always got your back.
I'm not lying.
Well, I just want to make sure everybody knows that you're not lying.
Yeah.
You know.
he's just...
Somebody's got to have your back.
No, it's true.
Alex definitely don't.
Yeah, he never does.
Look at him. Look at him. Look at him.
He's like, why me?
Yeah.
But yeah, I just thought this one would be really kind of out of the box, and it's a really fascinating part of history that genuinely not much is known about. And I say not much is known about, but then like what we're going to cover today is pretty crazy.
I agree.
Yeah, so I guess I'll just kind of get into it. But so from the like history angle, genuinely not much is known about Mithraism.
Okay.
It's mostly like vanished from history.
Okay.
For the most part. Actually, you know what? I'm going to put a quick pause. Before we get into the history and the doctrine and the myth ritual system of Mithraism itself, I want to take a quick step back and talk about like a broader overview of esoteric doctrine.
Yeah.
Right? So the deeper you get into this this body of knowledge, the more it becomes clear that there's this like big entangled web connecting all of these different systems, right? And it's obviously today that takes place in the form of like Rosicrucianism, Freemasonry. You have stuff like Hermetic Order, the Golden Dawn. You have Theosophy, and there's other systems that I'm probably not that aware of. But in the ancient past, you had these things like the Odinic mysteries, the Druids. You had the worshippers of Atum and Amun-Ra and Isis and Osiris, and you had Serapis, Mithraism, Orphism, and it goes on and on and on. The Eleusinian mysteries.
Kabbalah.
Yeah, Kabbalah. Zoroastrianism, the Essenes, the Gnostics. There's this massive web of these different schools of thought from these different cultures that were preaching the same thing. So what is the thing? What is the same thing, right? Excuse me. So I wanted to pull from my new favorite text, The Secret Teaching of All Ages, to talk about like the broad overview of esoteric doctrine. So this is from Manly P. Hall. Few of the early cults actually worshipped anthropomorphic deities, although their symbolism might lead one to believe that they did. They were moralistic rather than religionistic, philosophic rather than theologic. They taught man to use his faculties more intelligently, to be patient in the face of adversity, to be courageous when confronted by danger, to be true in the midst of temptation, and most of all, to view a worthy life as the most acceptable sacrifice to God and his body as an altar sacred to the deity. Sun worship played an important part in nearly all the early pagan mysteries. This indicates the probability of their Atlantean origin, for the people of Atlantis were sun worshippers. The solar deity was usually personified as a beautiful youth with long golden hair to symbolize the rays of the sun. This golden sun was slain by wicked ruffians who personified the evil principle of the universe. By means of certain rituals and ceremonies symbolic of purification and regeneration, this wonderful god of good was brought back to life and became the savior of his people. The secret processes whereby he was resurrected symbolized those cultures by means of which man is able to overcome his lower nature, master his appetites, and give expression to the higher side of himself. The mysteries were organized for the purpose of assisting the struggling human creature to reawaken the spiritual powers which, surrounded by the flaming ring of lust and degeneracy, lay asleep within his soul. In other words, man was offered a way by which he could regain his lost estate. And that is from Secret Teachings of All Ages. So, like, the general premise being made here throughout this text, and just in general throughout history, esoteric doctrine, is if you follow the Hermetic philosophy, the Hermetic body of knowledge, right? There's this primordial thought. There's this primordial tradition, right, that has survived from the time of Atlantis. And the idea is that this primordial tradition is like shining into all of these systems throughout time. It's influencing and informing all of these various myth ritual systems throughout time. And then we'll cover this a little bit later, but sometime around the 300s, I think it was when they had the Edict of Milan, when they legalized Christianity, and then eventually when it became the state religion of Rome, they sort of like massacred these other systems.
Yeah.
They just snuffed them out, right? So then like Roman Catholic Christianity became like the dominant viewpoint, and it just literally all of these traditions kind of washed away into the annals of time, right? Yeah. Just disappeared. So it's like, what were they teaching? What was the core idea between them? Well, the idea was present in all of their different ritual systems was that we are in a dream, right? We're in a dream. That this is an illusion, and that the real world is the other world, the spirit world, and that we come into this world, we fall into this material reality, right? Or as, some might say, as Lucifer rebelled against God and then fell into earth and or fell beneath earth and was imprisoned, shackled, whatever. And that's symbolic of us, like falling into this state, falling away from perfect spiritual reality, right? And basically our purpose here is to discover our true spiritual reality, to find the Philosopher's Stone, to drink from the Holy Grail, the chalice, basically to transmute our base animalistic lower desires into the higher philosophic thought and spiritual way of being and thinking and existing, and like sort of communing with God, the higher consciousness. It's like a general view of the esoteric doctrine. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, the way it's interesting, the way that it's phrased is that like those base, like the monkey mind. Remember we were talking about like the monkey mind?
In Journey to the West.
Yeah. It's like the antithesis of being in a state of spiritual being or awakening or enlightenment. Like giving into those like base. I like the way that it described that. Like we're all like, we have the core of spirituality. We have the spiritual core, and it's surrounded by, what was it? Lust and like degeneracy. Yeah. I like that description a lot. It feels so true, because there are many distractions in this material world, but they are just those. They're distractions. When you have this like underlying real alive truth that like there is something really beautiful going on inside of you, i.e. your soul or your consciousness, but you can't really focus on it or nourish it if you're being distracted by all of these like base material desires and stuff. I find it interesting that all of these ancient wisdom traditions are kind of hitting on that same thing.
Yeah, and here's the crazy thing. So you always wonder, why do they do rituals? At least I did. Growing up hearing about this stuff since I was 18 years old, being so fascinated by it, studying it for hours and hours and hours. I feel like the first level of getting into this whole field of knowledge is like, what do they mean? What does it all mean? What are they into? What's it about? And the more you read, the more you see like kind of the veil gets lifted a little bit, and you see like the connection between it all. And what I've come to understand is that in the ancient times, when they did these rituals, the reason that they were like, basically if you go tell these secrets, we'll kill you. I mean, they said it in a different way, but it's because at this time, the authorities of the time and the more or less like general populace of the world, the initiates or the masters or whatever, the priests of these systems believed that this knowledge was not safe among the general population. So in order to be initiated into one of these traditions, you had to prove that you are worthy, which is symbolic of King Arthur pulling the sword from the stone, or Mjolnir, whoever holds this hammer, whatever it says, whoever's so worthy, whoever is worthy to hold this hammer, who can hold Mjolnir. Like, you have to be worthy. You have to be a candidate that proves your worth, that you are earnestly seeking this knowledge. So what they would do is they would take these candidates who are seeking initiation, and they would put them through rigorous trials. Like, sometimes they might have a vow of silence for 3 years. Sometimes they might go off into the woods, and they have traps in the woods, and they have people dressed up, and they would do like simulations of hell. Like, if they were the Eleusinian mysteries, the oracles of Delphi, or the Orphic mysteries, they might have created a labyrinth so that people walk through the labyrinth and see people dressed up as the Minotaur, and dressed up as harpies, and dressed up as Hades, to like scare the initiate, to show them the horrors of living in material reality and the suffering of hell if they don't awaken. It's things
like
that.
A shocking allegory.
Yes. Yeah, but they would make them live it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it makes it real. It makes it real for it's like there's no better way to learn a lesson than having the shit scared out of you.
And I know that they do this. I know that this is real. A, because there's evidence of this all over the world. Mm-hmm. But B, I'm not going to say which, just maybe because I shouldn't, but I was very briefly in a fraternity in college. I know you remember this. I was very briefly in a fraternity. And it wasn't a big deal. I mean, I went to a small private Christian school. Like, it really was not like a big deal. It wasn't a huge thing. I was in it 2 semesters and I was out. And it was mainly just friends, and we played video games. And I found out later that fraternity was created by a Freemason. When I joined that fraternity, I was a young 18-year-old kid. I didn't even know what a Freemason was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Not at all?
No. I found out because of that. You know? But what I'm getting at is, fraternities have rituals. And we did a ritual. And it was the same thing. It was like a simulation of death and rebirth and like darkness and like laying in a coffin and being in the dark, stuff like that. I mean, it wasn't like, thread of my life. I mean, it was a college thing. Yeah. It was safe. Yeah. It wasn't that extreme, but it was.
But the fact that all the symbolism was still there is pretty wild.
So I'm just saying, like, in, 2012 or whatever, when I underwent this little washed down experience, it's like reminiscent of what these ancient people actually did. And sometimes I wonder if I was propelled by my subconscious mind just to have that experience as like a little
nudge,
a joke. Like, you went through it. But it was like laying in a coffin, dying, being reborn, and not me. You're observing it happening to someone else. I don't think they could get away with with something too extreme. There could be lawsuits or something. But my point is, I know they do this because I have witnessed it to some extent.
Yeah, I had assumed that like they made you get in a coffin.
No. No. I wish. I sincerely wish, dude. I wish they'd bury me in that shit for 3 days. What? No, I'm just kidding. But that's all I'm saying. I'm just commenting that like I genuinely and earnestly believe that this went on in ancient times and that it probably still does today with certain ritual societies.
Yeah, dude, if fraternities are doing it today, then I'm certain that like these mystery schools are doing it too.
Yeah, because that's where it came from.
Yeah.
So they would make these candidates prove their worthiness, and that's very interesting. So anyway, so Mithraism was very popular amongst Romans at the time, especially around the time of Christ. And actually, what's really cool is that when the Christian religion was forming, and Christ is dead for some number of years now, and there's all these different little cults and traditions around the time. The Christians were so at risk of being massacred by the Roman authorities because they were peeling their flesh off, they were burning them, they were cutting their heads off. The Romans were really killing them for like 300 years, like on site. It was a crime. Yeah. They actually secretly worshipped underground in Mithraic caves.
Wait a minute. So then is there like a projected like era of when Mithraism kind of emerged?
Yeah,
so I'm assuming that's got to mean it was obviously before this was all happening. If there was like Mithraic caves underground and stuff.
Yeah, they were around when Christ was already born. I mean, the timeline I'm seeing here is that the Mithraism, as we're talking about it right now, started in around the 1st century BCE, so around 100 BCE. So 100 years before the times of Christ. So these temples are not temples. They were caves.
Yeah.
They were underground tombs, catacombs, and sepulchres. They were already there. The Christians were literally worshiping in those tombs.
Wow. Just to
of Mithras.
Stay safe
Just
so that
stay
they
safe.
don't get murdered. Wow.
That's right.
Wow.
Now, if we back it up a little more and talk a little more heavily about the origins of Mithraism and where it like truly came from, we had one of my favorite historical figures, a man by the name of Zarathustra in 1000 BC. Also, it translates to mean radiant star. But then he changed his name to Zoroaster. And so here's where it gets interesting. Okay? I'm cutting forward a little ahead, and I'll cover it again later. Or I'm cutting a little bit ahead. I don't know what I just said.
Cutting forward a little head.
I'm cutting forward a little ahead. Yeah. a little ahead. Forward, damn it. And so Zarathustra, the radiant star man, in 1000 BC, he went into a cave. It's important to note that he went into a cave and he had a mystical experience. He saw God. He saw this flash of light and it spoke to him. And it said its name was Ahura Mazda, or it was Ormuzd. And it came to him and it basically said, and we have a whole episode on Zoroaster, probably really early in the show.
Yeah,
I don't know if
that was a really early one.
probably like the 20s or 30s.
Yeah.
Maybe the 40s or something. I don't know. And it basically told him, now granted, this was in Iran, previously known as Persia, so the language was different, but it basically said it was like the eternal God, the force of good throughout all the universe, and basically in a nutshell, skipping over a lot of the Zoroastrian doctrine, which a lot of Christianity took from this, or rather, Judaism took from this, and it was molded by this, especially considering it was the Persian king Cyrus who freed the Jews from captivity in Babylon. So you have to consider, like, there are real historical moments in time where the Persians and the Jews were friends.
Yeah.
And they were working together and they were escaping Babylon. So there was like a genuine point in history where there was a transmission of their cultures.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So anyway, he goes into a cave and it says, "Behold, I'm Ahura Mazda." In order to basically go to heaven, I'm going to boil it down. Basically, to go to heaven, you have to have good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. You have to be pure of heart. You have to have a good spirit. But there is a dark spirit, Angramainu, or Ahriman. It's the evil reflection. And there's this eternal cosmic war of, this dark shadow versus me, the God of light and goodness and truth and salvation. And basically it boils down to, in Zoroastrian thought, there came a point in time throughout the universe where Ahriman invaded the soul of mankind. So now, for every good thing there is in the universe, Ahriman is trying to poison it. So basically what they're saying is human nature has Angramanu, the light, God, the highest good, and it has Ahriman whispering, evil demonic things in our ear. We have both light and dark inside of us.
I see.
So we have to align ourselves with the light, with Angramainu, through good thoughts, good words,
Wait,
good
I thought
deeds.
the light was Ahura Mazda.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The bad one's Angramainu.
Right.
Yeah, we have to align with the Ahura Mazda.
Yeah.
We have to align with the good, the light, through good thoughts, good words, good deeds,
Yeah.
or the dark force will steal us away. Mm-hmm. It'll destroy us.
Mm-hmm.
So somewhere along the lines of Zoroastrianism, over 1,000 years between 1000 BC to the time of Christ and the height of Mithraism, over time, the Zoroastrian writers and priests added more. They added more texts. And at some point, there became this other figure known as Mithra, which is a flame. It's like this fire. And it's kind of like their version of Christ. Mithra or Mithras is like the intercessor between man and the light.
Like the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, or Jesus.
Yeah.
Born of a virgin. He's born of a virgin. December 25th. He is crucified, or not, I think it's crucified, but he's killed. And he's resurrected after 3 days. He's the savior of mankind. He's a shepherd with the crook and the stick.
Yeah.
Like Jesus, he's a shepherd. He's virtually identical to Jesus. But here's the thing that I want the listener to remember. So 1,000 years ago, this system from Zoroaster is created. And there's a prophecy that says there will be a star in the east. And, we did just talk about this on the Revelations episode, which is why I was like, Mithraism. So 1,000 years later, the Magi come around and they're like, oh my God, there's a star in the east. They're telling King Herod, like the
prophecy.
The Christ is born. Yeah. The Savior is born. Like he's here. We got to follow the star. And King Herod's like, great, we're going to kill every child in Israel. we're going to kill literally every child in Israel. So the 3 Magi, they follow the star and they're like, you need to get out of here. You need to go to Egypt. So they escaped to Egypt. But anyway, I wanted to just kind of briefly touch on the notion that there's sort of like a trinity between Mithraism, Zoroastrianism, and Christianity. There's a very strong connection between these systems. The doctrines are virtually the same. The story and system of the deity is the same, and I wanted to get that out of the way. So now more specifically on Mithraism, it obviously likely comes from Zoroastrianism. Mithra is associated with contracts, the light, truth, goodness, the intercessor between man and Ahura Mazda. So obviously because Alexander the Great conquered the Hellenistic world took the Hellenistic world and conquered, Egypt and all these different surrounding nations, there was this transmission of Hellenistic thought spreading throughout Israel. You have the New Testament's written in Greek. The Greek magical papyri are spreading everywhere and all this. So there's this blending of Greek and Roman beliefs.
Yeah.
So somehow or another, around the time of Christ, you have this Persian Iranian story of Mithra and Ahura Mazda, and you go to Rome and it's like all the Romans are down with it.
Yeah,
that's what I'm getting at. The Romans are just
so then Mithraism kind of emerged out of the same place as Zoroastrianism too, like Persia, Iran.
Its roots, yeah. But it ended up like being really popular in Rome. Fun fact: there's at least one Roman emperor who was initiated into the mysteries of Mithras.
Whoa, that's crazy!
Fully gone through the process.
That's wild.
Yeah. That's
very
like unheard
of.
Right. It was super popular amongst the Roman elite. So that's the whole point. Like, Alexander the Great comes around, he starts just dominating, and then, this Greek and Roman thought starts just blowing up in this ancient world. And, the next thing you know, the Romans are like, they have cults of Isis.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
They so eventually, they take over. They're like, I know we like slaughtered Christ, but actually, we're cool with him now.
Yeah.
And then they created the Pope, and they're like, I'm the God of Earth. Yeah. I'm the God on Earth. Like that's how the Romans did it, man. They like to party.
Party? I don't know if that's what I would
Bacchus.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. But it's just crazy when you think about it. Like
Dionysus is cooler.
Yeah, for sure. No doubt.
Just saying.
Yeah. But
sorry, Alex.
Yeah, so it becomes established in the Roman Empire. Talk back to Mithraism. It's established as like this very mysterious high society Roman elite thing, especially among soldiers, merchants. His imagery begins to morph, talking about Mithra or Mithras, the deity, showing him as this heroic, new like icon where he's slaying a bull. There's this image of his sword in a bull's throat. There's this dog like drinking the dripping blood of the bull. There's a scorpion latched onto the bull. There's all this like symbolic stuff that we'll get into a little bit later. It is a mystery religion, so its rites and teachings are kept secret from the outside. So there's virtually no surviving written material about what they believed. Their actual doctrine, their practices, whatever. And then obviously all of their places of worship are temples that are built underground in caves, sepulchers, and tombs. Interesting that Zoroaster went into a cave and he found God. Mithraic and Christianity in its early days were underground in caves. Now, what we haven't talked about yet or ever on the show is there is actually a very strong second, very highly probable real version of Jesus's birth, which places him as being born in a cave.
What are you talking? What is that?
So I have this friend named Dr. George Zervos, who is a professor at UNCW. Yeah. And he is actually one of the professors. I'm sure there's a small handful throughout the world who have this level of access and credential. He actually has been permitted to study like original Dead Sea Scrolls manuscripts and Nag Hammadi texts, like literally like ancient papyri. And there's this old scroll called the Protovangelium of James, the brother of Jesus. It's like a real ancient scroll. Like he showed my dad. Like he has all these like Xeroxed PDFs from this papyri, and he has this like massive 2-volume book that took him years to write, where basically he goes through and he shows you. He went through all these different ancient manuscripts and like had them earmarked, like hundreds, if not thousands, of references of Jesus being born in a cave. And in the Protovangelium of James, the brother of Jesus, it talks about, basically Mary is she's going through, she's late in her pregnancy, she's on her way to Jerusalem or Bethlehem or whatever as the story goes. They make it to mile marker 3. You're like, mile marker 3? What the heck? Well, we use the Roman imperial system in America.
Yeah.
They had mile markers, and Rome built all those roads. Like they had elaborate mile marking systems between towns, measuring. They had actual literal mile markers between all the cities.
You wouldn't think like something like that would exist in ancient times.
It's like, what?
Yeah.
And in this ancient 2,000-year-old manuscript, it says that they stop at a cave at mile marker 3. She goes into the cave. Boof, out pops Jesus in a flash of light, and he's walking around, and he's like 5 years old. And he's talking, and it's a real like ancient gospel.
What?
And that's just one example of the idea of Jesus being born in a cave.
Oh my God, that's crazy. No manger, no nativity.
Well, I mean that's a possibility.
No, sure, yeah, of course. But the fact that like you've always heard it's like some stable and like a manger and like all this stuff is. But it being a cave would match up with a lot of other like savior kind of origin. Yeah, that's really wild.
Yeah, and that's not the only text.
He popped out and he's 5 years old. What the hell?
And he's talking and like that. It's called a docetic appearance. In other words, there was a belief among some sects in the ancient world that Jesus, docetic means like to supernaturally appear.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I'm here.
Just poof.
Yeah, I'm here. Poof.
Yeah.
Like I exist here now.
And a flash of light too. That's crazy.
Yeah, smoke filled the cave, flash of light, boom, out pops Jesus.
Whoa.
But that's just one example of an ancient text indicating that Jesus may have been born in a cave. Now we have to consider of all 4 of the Gospels, which is a very small number that we have access to, not even they agree about his birth.
Well,
Only one of them, at most 2 of them, even tell the manger story.
Yeah.
I think it's either Matthew or Luke or both of them.
Right. And if there's thousands...
They don't even agree.
No. Yeah. And if there's thousands of accounts of him being born in a cave, like thousands of earmarks, like you said, like there were all...
It might have been hundreds. I'll have to double check. But it's a lot.
Even if it's dozens.
Even if it's 1.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's still crazy. Yeah. The fact that we basically have 2 books out of the Bible, at most 2, that mention like, oh yeah, it was like some like stable, in a manger situation. It's like, okay, are we just going to take that on face?
Well, even that doesn't make sense because based on, the fact that his birthday is December 25th, there's no credibility to that because historians and scholars agree that based on that story, he was probably realistically born in like, I think it's early fall or late summer.
Yeah. I've always heard summer. Like summer-ish.
Of course, they picked... Actually, Emperor Constantine picked December 25th.
I was going to say, they chose it December 25th. Constantine did.
He did.
What was that meeting called? Didn't they call it something?
I'm not sure about that specific meeting. Maybe the Council of Nicaea. Or
something. Yeah. Something like that. But yeah, they just chose that date.
Yeah, because Sol Invictus and Mithras were born on December 25th.
Yeah. And also, wasn't it something about it aligned with some sort of...
The winter solstice.
Well, yeah, the winter solstice, but also like the Druidic. There were, the Druids obviously like I wouldn't say worship, but they like revered the solstices, and I thought that there was some sort of Druidic holiday that took place on December 25th, and they kind of wanted to mask over it with their own holiday.
We talked about that on the Spirit of Christmas episode.
Yeah,
and I think it was a Roman thing.
Okay.
I'm not sure, but I do know that the winter solstice starts on December 21st.
Yeah.
It's the darkest day of the year, every year. The sun goes into retrograde. It begins to descend beneath the horizon or die, right? For 3 days, it's in the underworld. And then on December 25th, it rises back up above the horizon.
Mm-hmm.
And it begins its upward ascent towards, the summer solstice.
Yeah.
So you have the story of the dying Christ. It descends into the realms of the underworld for 3 days, and it's born again. Yeah. So, anyway, that's just some deep stuff.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah. The point is that they chose that date, and it's pretty eerie that it just happens to line up with Mithraism and Zoroastrianism, and it's pretty compelling.
It is. So there are 7 initiation levels with their own rituals and symbolism. We'll get a little bit more into those later. As Christianity is becoming more dominant and is beginning to gain imperial or Roman support in the 300s, the Roman officials start to suppress Mithraism and all the other mystery systems, right? So Constantine's Edict of Milan establishes religious tolerance. In other words, Constantine comes in and he says, hey, it is no longer legal to kill Christians. They have the freedom to express their religion.
Yeah.
And then it was in like 383, I believe, or maybe it was 381, when Emperor Theodosius comes in and he was like, okay, we are officially Christians. This is our religion, everybody. We are Christian people.
Yeah.
And he makes it the state thing.
Yeah.
Mandated. For real.
Yeah.
He does. So once they officially become Christian, they start to ban all the other practices, and that starts the process of destroying Mithraic temples, right? So that's
all sorts of temples.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. There's not much that has survived about
right.
Mithraism,
yeah.
like at all.
It all got burned away and destroyed.
Pretty much. By the early 5th century, it mostly disappears. The temples are all basically destroyed. The practices fade. Christianity is now becoming the dominant thing across the Roman Empire. This kind of feels like Star Wars, doesn't it? When
it does.
The Jedi lose.
Order 66?
It kind of feels like that for a little bit.
It definitely is like that.
And then there's like 40 years of...
I don't think I ever made that connection. That's a good...
The old way is like snuffed out. And...
Dude, oh my God, they're called the Empire. Oh my God, wait a minute, what the hell?
Well, dude, he's based it off all this.
Yeah, I'm just like, the connection is happening in my brain right now. Like, that Order 66
the
is
Jedi are like the old, the primordial tradition.
Isn't the legend that it was like Friday the 13th or whatever?
That's the Templars.
Oh, I thought this all happened at the same time.
No. Templars were in the 1300s.
Oh, right.
Yeah, but it's connected to this.
Yeah.
It's just 1,000 years later.
Dude, that's crazy. It is like Order 66.
Yeah.
Damn.
And I didn't think about it in that context either, specifically about this, but I mean, if the shoe fits, man.
Yeah.
It is kind of like that. Like the Empire came in and snuffed everything out, and they're burning down all these libraries in Egypt and in the Middle East. And
they destroyed the freaking Jedi library, bro.
Yeah, for real.
They did.
They actually did. And then in the 19th and 20th centuries, there were some archaeological digs where they found some like temples with inscriptions on the wall, and that's what I was talking about in the Revelations episode. I know you probably don't remember because we say a lot, but I was saying that the only surviving thing we have really about them is archaeological stuff, where people go into tombs underground, and there's these like star charts on these bulls with the depiction of Mithras slaying the bull, which it could be interpreted, if you think about it. Now I might get my timeline messed up here, but I want to say, maybe you could look this up for me, Alex. Was it the age of Taurus before the age of Pisces? Or was it the age of Aries? That's important to know, because in the times of Moses and the other prophets leading up to Jesus, there was this whole worship of the golden calf. It was, anything pop up? Just like
all that bull symbolism.
The age of Taurus began around 4300 BCE, and the age of Pisces began around 1 CE.
So what was there anything in between? Aries, maybe?
Let me see.
Yeah, I guess just look up like when the age of Aries was. Well, I mean, what's the order of the zodiac?
I don't know.
Oh, yeah, me either.
I really don't know.
I don't either.
I think I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. Aries is in between, beginning at 2150 BCE and ended in 1 CE. So it was Aries, then Pisces.
Okay, well, that throws a wrench in what I was about to say. But there's an interpretation that the symbol of Mithras slaying the bull symbolizes, like, and like how the lady came to Dad and she was like, I'm the divine feminine, everything she said. I've already said it before. And she says basically that when the feminine comes back into balance, we'll be in peace. That there's like kind of an evil, masculine, warlike energy dominating the planet. That we're suffering because those divine forces are out of balance. There's a theory that Mithras slaying the bull symbolizes like in an archetypal way, the slaying of the warlike, aggressive, animal, lower nature of consciousness, which is, warlike, violent, whatever. It's like the subduing of those forces.
Huh. Yeah. And I mean, like, popularly, Aries and Taurus are both considered like masculine energy signs. Like, I mean, especially you just think about like Aries, the god of war.
Right.
Hello. We're going from that era to Pisces. Like, and also Aries.
Well, now we're going to the water bearer.
Right.
The feminine.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's cool.
And, it's like, it's not to say, if we have mostly men listening to the show, it's not to say anything like that. It's just to say that there has to be balance in all things. We can't deny that there isn't war fucking ravage in the world right now.
Oh, my
and
God.
hasn't been for 2,000 years.
Yeah.
It's just a fact. That's all I'm saying. Like, it's just, it's got to come to an end.
Yeah.
Come on, people.
Come on, get it together.
So, Mithraic doctrine. Right, dude?
Get it together, world.
Talking to the warmongers.
Yes.
The warriors. So the doctrine of Mithraism, right? This is from the Secret Teachings of All Ages. According to the Persians, there coexisted in eternity two principles. The first of these, Ahura Mazda, or Ormuzd, was the spirit of good. From Ormuzd came forth a number of hierarchies of good and beautiful spirits, angels and archangels. The second of these eternally existing principles was called Ahriman. He was also a pure and beautiful spirit, like Lucifer, but he later rebelled against Ormuzd, being jealous of his power. Bro, this shit's 1,000 years older.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Straight up the same story.
This did not occur, however, until after Ormuzd had created light, for previously Ahriman had not been conscious of the existence of Ormuzd. Let me read that again, because that one kind of did a little glitch in my brain. This did not occur, however, until after Ormuzd had created light, for previously Ahriman had not been conscious of the existence of Ormuzd. Okay, you know what? In the Gnostic episode, that reminds me of the demiurge being born and not being aware of the God above him. Very interesting.
Yes.
Very interesting connection. Because of his jealousy and rebellion, Ahriman became the spirit of evil. From himself, he individualized a host of destructive creatures to injure Ormuzd. When Ormuzd, or we could say Ahura Mazda, created the earth, Ahriman entered into its grosser elements. Grosser meaning like subtle, like
fine.
Like the crude elements, the earth, the material. Whenever Ormuzd did a good deed, Ahriman placed the principle of evil within it. At last, when Ormuzd created the human race, Ahriman became incarnate in the lower nature of man, so that in each personality the spirit of good and the spirit of evil struggle for control. For 3,000 years, Ormuzd ruled the celestial worlds with light and goodness. Then he created man. For another 300 years, he ruled man with wisdom and integrity. Then the power of Ahriman began, and the struggle for soul of man continues through the next period of 3,000 years. During the fourth period of 3,000 years, the power of Ahriman will be destroyed. Good will return to the world again, and evil and death will be vanquished, and at last the spirit of evil will bow humbly before the throne of Ormuzd. While Ormuzd and Ahriman are struggling for control of the human soul and for supremacy in nature, Mithras, the god of intelligence, stands as mediator between the two. Many authors have noted the similarity between Mercury and Mithras, as the chemical mercury acts as a solvent, according to alchemists, so Mithras seeks to harmonize the two celestial opposites.
Wow.
So there's something really interesting to note here. They just gave us a period of 12,000 years. Now, there is an idea that society might be only about 12,000 years old, and they said in that last 3,000 year cycle that the power of Ahriman would be destroyed and then peace would reign eternal, right? That's very interesting because if you go by the fact that Zoroastrianism began literally 3,000 years ago, you could argue that we are now at the end of that final 3,000 year period.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And it's also fascinating that you said that the age of Taurus was like 4,000 something BC, right? Mm-hmm. And then was the age of Aries, right? Yeah. And then after that, the age of Pisces, which the end of the age of Aries would have been the birth of Christ.
Around that
towards
time.
the end.
Yeah.
And then it's ushering in the age of Pisces. So it's kind of interesting. The bull, Taurus, is being slain by Mithra. The period of time when Jesus was born was that Aries period. So it's like that era, that age, killed the age of the bull and ushered in the age of Pisces. Mm-hmm. That's pretty wild symbolically that it matches up that way.
Yeah.
That at the end of that age of Aries is when Christ came, or Mithra.
Right.
And ushered in killed the age of the bull and ushered in the age of Pisces. That's kind of wild.
Yeah, that is interesting. I didn't think about it like that. It
sits in the middle.
Because Mithraism would have began in the period following the period. It would have began in Aries.
That's, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
And it had the end of its reign at the end of Aries. It started getting snuffed out, and then Jesus was born. But yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, that's how the symbology is mapping out in my brain. At least I'm picturing obviously the age of Taurus as the bull. The age of Aries is Mithra, like the birth of Mithra, mm-hmm. and then it is killing that age and going into the next age. It immediately follows with the age of Pisces, like 1 CE. Literally 1 is when Pisces starts.
Yeah.
Immediately after, 30 years after the birth of Christ / Mithra.
It's also interesting to think, though, that we have all this, talk about Age of Aquarius coming up and all these different, you have Revelations, you have Hopi prophecy, all these different systems. The Hindu star chart talking about the Kali Yuga, maybe ending in 2025. And then you have this where literally 3,000 years ago, that Persian prophet Zoroaster gave this prophecy and put it out there that there are 4 3,000-year periods. And after the end of the during the fourth period of 3,000 years, which is now, the dark force, the power of Ahriman, will be destroyed and good will return to the world again. So it's just another notch on the wall of things adding up to prophecy unfolding and a golden age mm-hmm. coming. I don't like to think about it as bad times ahead. No. It's good times ahead. It's the golden age.
Yeah.
But very interesting. Also cool how they make the parallel between Mithras and Mercury.
Mm-hmm.
As
the
a chemical solvent
and stuff. Yeah.
Mercury it's a mutable metal. It can be a liquid. It can be solid. It's quicksilver. It can change forms depending on heat and pressure applied to it. So we are Mercury. It's the transformation of the soul. With that heat, with pressure applied, we can transmute.
It's based on what we apply to it.
Yeah.
The form that it takes.
Right.
That's really cool.
So moving on, there are many points of resemblance between Christianity and the cult of Mithras. One of the reasons for this probably is that the Persian mystics invaded Italy during the 1st century after Christ, and the early history of both cults was closely interwoven. The Encyclopedia Britannica makes the following statement concerning the Mithraic and Christian mysteries. The fraternal and democratic spirit of the first communities and their humble origin, the identification of the object of adoration with light in the sun, the legends of the shepherds with their gifts and adoration, the flood in the ark, the representation in art of the fiery chariot, the drawing of water from the rock, the use of bell and candle, holy water in the communion, the sanctification of Sunday and of the 25th of December, the insistence on moral conduct, the emphasis placed on abstinence and self-control, the doctrine of heaven and hell, of primitive revelation, of the mediation of the Logos emanating from the divine, the atoning sacrifice, the constant warfare between good and evil, and the final triumph of the I lost my spot for a second. The final triumph of the former, the immortality of the soul, the last judgment, the resurrection of the flesh, and the fiery destruction of the universe. These are some of the resemblances which, whether real or only apparent, enabled Mithraism to prolong its resistance to Christianity. The rites of Mithras were performed in caves. Porphyry, in his Cave of the Nymphs, states that Zarathustra, or Zoroaster, was the first to consecrate a cave to the worship of God because a cavern was symbolic of the earth, or the lower world of darkness. John P. Lundy, in his Monumental Christianity, describes the cave of Mithras as follows. But this cave was adorned with the signs of the zodiac, Cancer and Capricorn. That is, I believe, the summer and winter solstices and equinox, too. The summer and winter solstices were chiefly conspicuous as the gates of souls descending into this life or passing out of it in their ascent to the gods, Cancer being the gate of descent and Capricorn of ascent. These are the two avenues of the immortals passing up and down from earth to heaven and from heaven to earth. The most famous sculptures and reliefs of this prototokos, I guess that's a Greek word, shows Mithras kneeling upon the recumbent form of a great bull into whose throat he is driving a sword. The slaying of the bull signifies that the rays of the sun, symbolized by the sword, release at the vernal equinox the vital essences of the earth, the blood of the bull, which, pouring from the wound made by the sun god, fertilized the seeds of living things. Dogs were held sacred to the cult of Mithras, being symbolic of sincerity and trustworthiness. The Mithraics used the serpent as an emblem of Ahriman, the spirit of evil, and water rats were held sacred to him. The bull is esoterically the constellation of Taurus. The serpent, its opposite in the zodiac, Scorpio. The sun is Mithras, entering into the side of the bull, slays the celestial creature, and nourishes the universe with its blood. Remember in the very beginning we talked about how there's this connection between all these other esoteric societies coming back from the times of Atlantis, who typically were known to create allegories about the sun. Sun god, solar force, solar deities, right? So they're saying here Mithras represents the sun moving through the cosmos. So these are just a list of actual doctrines of Mithraism here. So you have cosmic dualism. Obviously, there's this eternal good, eternal evil, light and darkness. This cosmic struggle manifests in our earthly life. The followers of Mithra are seeking to align themselves with the forces of light, right? Mithras is a savior. He grants immortality to his followers. Again, this is what they believe. I'm not saying this literally, but slaying of the bull, also known as the Tauroctony, was central to this belief, as the bull's death symbolizes the release of life-giving energies that nourish the cosmos. Mithraism has a strict hierarchy. Initiates progress through 7 ranks or grades with symbolic meanings and associated rituals. From the lowest to highest orders, they were Korax, or the raven, Nymphus, the bridegroom, Miles, the soldier, Leo, the lion, Perses, the Persian, Heliodromus, the sun runner, and Pater, or the father. Initiation ceremonies included symbolic tests of courage and endurance. Remember what we talked about, where they might, in Greek, they might run through a labyrinth and someone's dressed as a minotaur. If you're like a druid or you're in the Odinic mysteries, you might run out in the woods and, they might jump out at you dressed like, I don't know, like something.
Loki or something.
But people died. These were very dangerous.
That's dark.
No, it was life and death to make it through these initiations. It is kind of dark when you think about it. Like, it was serious, dude. Like, people literally died. Like, only the worthy made it through the initiations. It wasn't a college fraternity. It was like...
Yeah, it's a whole different... That's some hardcore hazing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was, prove you're worthy. It was like... It's like literally like, no, you had to be worthy to earn the secret doctrine. Yeah. Like life or death, literally.
Loose lips sink ships, bro.
Yeah. You're lucky you made it through that initiation alive.
Yeah. Like, seriously. Like, people drowned, burned to death. Like, they would have, like, traps. Like,
that's so wild.
Only the worthy survived, man.
Man, I'm glad they didn't stuff you in that coffin.
Yeah, for real, dude.
You might not have made it.
I might not have, dude. I might not have, dude. Not at 18 years old. No way. So it had a strong astrological component. Obviously, the bull, the Tauroctony, is like a star chart with the zodiac allegory. Mithras's actions were believed to influence the movements of the celestial bodies. The 7 ranks corresponded to the 7 classical planets. And the Tauroctony scene may have represented the cosmic events tied to the seasonal cycles, like the vernal equinox and the solstice. They had a shared ritual meal, sometimes compared very closely to the Christian Eucharist. It's an important part of the Mithraic worship system. This meal likely involved bread and wine and symbolized communion with Mithras. Yeah, that's a little on the news.
Hell, dude.
The same with Dionysus.
Yeah, it's just wild that they all match up so exactly. This one is remarkably like identical.
The crazy part is like Christians literally worshipped in their tombs.
Yeah, in Mithraic tombs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
literally.
And it's practically the
Literally.
same religion.
Yeah.
Like there's almost nothing that's different so far, like except the names and stuff.
Yeah, for real.
Even a lot of the symbology, like the fire and stuff, like Jesus brought the Holy Spirit, which is like described as fire. Mm-hmm. Like what do they call it? It's
the Holy Spirit, the Pentecost.
Yeah. The
day of Pentecost.
Yes. Yeah.
Obviously, their rituals took place in underground temples or Mithraea, which symbolized the cave where Mithras performed the bull sacrifice. The cave represented the cosmos and served as a space where initiates could meditate on the mysteries of creation and cosmic order. Sun and light worship, very closely associated with Sol Invictus, which is the Roman sun god, who also has a birthday of December 25th, which is who Emperor Constantine worshipped before he was a Christian, and he decreed Jesus' birthday would be the same as his. Sol Invictus. Mm-hmm. The unconquered sun was sometimes referred to as the light of the world, like Jesus. Wow. Mithraeus believed in the power of light to overcome darkness, and the sun's movements were seen as symbolic of Mithras' own journey and struggle. So it's that astro-theology, the story of the cosmos is telling the story of the divine, right? Yeah. Like the stars and the celestial bodies in the heavens are showing us the story of God throughout the ages. That's astro-theology.
Yeah.
Mithraism likely promoted ethical conduct, courage in battle. Many of its followers were soldiers. Loyalty, camaraderie, and discipline were emphasized, aligning with Roman military virtues. Mm-hmm. If you looked at depictions of Mithras, he often wore a Phrygian cap, which I'm going to show you what that is if you're not familiar. But it symbolized liberty and freedom. And you'll notice throughout the French Revolution, they wore Phrygian caps, symbolizing freedom.
Yeah. And speaking of which, you know that there are a lot of theories that the Statue of Liberty is Mithras.
I've heard Lucifer. I've heard Mithras. I've heard Ishtar. But I mean, same thing, really.
Yeah. Same. All the same. But it's just interesting. You said freedom and liberty. I was like, Statue of Liberty. It's, I don't know. I saw a thing on it recently. Actually, oh my God, why am I blanking? Sam Tripoli was talking about it recently. Oh, yeah. That's wild. Look at that face. Kind of looks like a Statue of Liberty.
Yeah, it does, actually. You see the stars on his cape?
Yeah.
Driving the sword into the bull's throat, and the dog is licking the blood.
Yeah, it's funny. I recently saw a video.
He's got a Phrygian cap.
Yeah, I saw a video of Sam Tripoli talking about how the Statue of Liberty is Mithras, and they pulled that exact picture and showed it. I think he was on Rogan talking about it.
Oh, cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was just on Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
Very cool.
That was interesting and pretty wild that I just happened to see that this week before we did this episode.
Yeah, that is, because I haven't caught that one. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I'm just going to breeze through some of their rituals and initiations, and then we're going to round out with the parallels of Mithraism to other traditions, including Freemasonry and Rosicrucianism. So, initiation into the rites of Mithras, like initiation into many other ancient schools of philosophy, apparently consisted of 3 important degrees. Preparation for these degrees consisted of self-purification, the building up of the intellectual powers, and the control of the animal nature. In the first degree, the candidate was given a crown upon the point of a sword and instructed in the mysteries of Mithras' hidden power. Probably he was taught that the golden crown represented his own spiritual nature, which must be objectified and unfolded before he could truly glorify Mithras. For Mithras was his own soul, standing as mediator between Ormuzd, his spirit, and Ahriman, his animal nature. So what Manly P. Hall is telling you here is like, you are Christ, you are Orpheus, you are Thor or Odin or whatever. You are this divine being, And there are two natures of your soul. It's God and the devil, or it's Ahriman and Ahura Mazda, or it's Lucifer and Christ. And it's like you have the choice if you want to live in heaven or hell, or if you want to be, aligned with God and live a high vibrational life and ascend out of this earthly reality, or if you want to be trapped in your lower nature and align with the negative vibration.
Yeah.
And that just
in the cave or out of the cave.
Right. Yeah. Like Plato's cave, right?
Yeah.
Which is another interesting parallel to the cave.
All these caves, dude. We got to go to a cave.
We do, dude.
Let's go to a cave.
I've been to the one I've been to Linville Caverns.
Oh, yeah. It's
cool.
beautiful.
It's cool.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
So beautiful.
There's a story there that I thought was just really mind-blowing, how there were, in like the 1800s, there were these two guys that were trapped in there for weeks in the darkness. Have
In
you heard this
Linville.
story?
Yeah.
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 You know how they got out?
I don't remember.
They followed the trickling water
Smart.
in the darkness.
Let's go get lost in a cave.
No.
Just for the listener, I've been in there. It's so dark. They tell you to put your hand in front of your face, and then they turn the lights out, and you cannot see your own hand inches from your face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
It's in a
pitch
mountain.
black.
Complete and total darkness. No light gets in
They
there.
were trapped in there for like days or weeks.
Oh.
And they followed and we're talking
Yeah,
1800s.
The fish in the water can't see because they don't need to.
Yeah, you would go
They're
insane.
blind.
If you got lost in there, you would... I think you can pay for the experience to go in there and experience the blackout darkness. I didn't do that.
It's
but-
part of the tour.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, for free.
I
They
don't-
turn the lights off for like 10 seconds.
I don't think my tour did that.
Yeah.
I didn't get total darkness.
Why didn't those two guys just like pull out their iPhones?
Because it was the 1800s.
They didn't have.
No, I don't think so.
Oh,
Man.
well, I mean,
I don't think
sounds
so.
like they're idiots to me.
I think they had candles and they had the little thing. I can't remember what you call it, where you put it on your eye and you pull the stick and it like shows a different picture of like a boudoir.
Yeah, a headlamp. Yeah.
I don't know. That's not what I'm talking about. That's not- you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't remember they had little peep shows? Where you
What do you
pull
mean? I don't
Peep
remember.
shows.
Dude, I
They
was,
did.
I was born
Oculus.
in 98.
Yeah.
Oculus.
They had the little peep shows. You pull the stick and it's like a pinup girl. Y'all didn't have one?
Yeah, I had
No one ever asked them what they were doing in there to get lost.
Yeah.
The cave dwellers? I mean,
They're probably just role playing. they're probably just in there role playing.
Yeah.
Yellowstone style.
yeah, for sure, dude. They're probably in there role playing and just seeking for seeking Jesus. They're seeking Jesus. They're searching or they're seeking for Jesus. That's what I'm trying to say.
speaking
Must
Tones.
be a leap year.
Yeah, yeah.
Nah, I mean, I'm just gonna keep digging.
Yeah. Keep digging in
They're
that
seeking
cave.
Jesus. That's what I was
Yes.
trying to say.
Okay, you did it. You got there.
I finally got there, man.
I'm proud of you.
Mithras was his own soul, standing as mediator between Ormuzd and his spirit, and Ahriman his animal nature. In the second degree, he was given the armor of intelligence and purity and sent into the darkness of subterranean pits to fight the beasts of lust, passion, and degeneracy. In the third degree, he was given a cape upon which were drawn or woven the signs of the zodiac and other astronomical symbols. I just showed you that. He
Yeah.
had the cape with the stars.
That's cool.
After his initiations were over, he was hailed as one who had risen from the dead, was instructed in the secret teachings of the Persian mystics, and became a full-fledged member of the order. Candidates who successfully passed the Mithraic initiations were called lions and were marked upon their foreheads with the Egyptian cross, or it's a tau cross. Mithras himself is often pictured with the head of a lion and two pairs of wings. Throughout the entire ritual were repeated references to the birth of Mithras as the sun god, his sacrifice for man, his death that men might have eternal life, and lastly his resurrection and the saving of all humanity by his intercession before the throne of Ormuzd. I really think that the ancients, I'm talking the way ancients, like Atlantean times, knew ahead of time that there was going to be a shift in the cycle. And they put the word out, like, at the end of the ages, when things get really, really bad, there is a savior. There's going to be this force that's going to come, and it has the power to wake you up from ignorance, to bring you out of that cave of darkness, to raise your spiritual abilities where you can subjugate your animal nature. And then when times get really tough, the light's going to come through and it's going to flip a switch and,
Yeah.
the world will be saved or whatever. I think that word was put out like longer than we can even fathom before time. And over time, that story has been adopting different cultural
faces.
Yeah, figures.
Yeah. Like each age has its own avatar that acts as the catalyst into the next age.
Because it's the same story.
Yeah, it's the cycle of good and evil.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It came from somewhere. This story came from somewhere.
Yeah, it didn't just start out of nowhere, and it seems to predate
everything.
Everything.
Literally.
You can keep digging back further and further and further. There is always some mystery tradition or some religion that is talking about this exact same cycle of light and darkness.
Babylon had a version of this story, and Babylon is like literally, the oldest civilization.
That's as far back as we can
Mesopotamia.
See.
It's got to be this. It's got to be, in my opinion, just thinking about like the esoteric doctrine. I think it is a true story that exists beyond time and space, and for the last 2,000 years, we've had it pushed to us this one way.
Mm-hmm.
But like when you lift the veil, you see that like, oh wow, this has been told literally like in every era in human history.
Yeah, we only know the stuff that we've talked about in this age.
Right.
Just this age.
Right.
Nothing else. That's all that we know. But you dig back into these older and older and older ages, it's written in the stars. Dude.
Right.
It's written in the stars. It's like we could go back to before humans were speaking, and it's in the stars, dude. That's what astro-theology is. It's like this story has been written before there even were humans.
I suspect that this is, like some sort of spiritual simulation. We can say whatever terminology we like. I don't mean like someone's sitting on a computer somewhere, but it's like, a really spiritual, paranormal, supernatural thing where our soul, all that higher self shit, we come here and we learn lessons, we grow, but there is like this collective destiny of the whole simulation too that spans, every 12 or 26,000 years or whatever. And I suspect that it's like an eternal cycle that happens over and over and over and over. And this story survives each one. Mm-hmm. And it's like a guidepost for each version or iteration of civilization. And that's why it's manifesting in like literally every ancient culture in the world. It's written in the pyramids, bro.
Yeah.
Literally. My dad has this friend named Robert Edward Grant. He's a really smart guy. He has a show on Gaia. I can't remember what it's called, but it's like you could look him up, Robert Edward Grant. And long story short, I talked about him briefly on an episode a few months ago. I think it was the Stargate episode, actually. But I didn't have the full story. I told you a story about how he put the Apple Vision Pro on my dad's head at Contact in the Desert. Yeah. Well, I actually messed it up when we did that episode. Here's what he really saw. He went into the pyramids and he found there's a I think it's like, dang. It's funny because I forgot one part when I was telling that episode, and now I forgot the part that I did tell in that episode, but I remember now the part that I forgot. So whenever I said in the Stargate episode, I think it was like there's a bull, or maybe it's the Sphinx, and there's this like ruby that's missing under the paw of the Sphinx.
Yeah, I seem to remember that.
Codex.
Probably, yeah. Robert Edward Grant.
I think that's it.
But there's an Alpha and Omega.
In the pyramids?
Yeah. In hieroglyphs on the wall, there's an Alpha and an Omega. Do you know what that means?
Of course.
The beginning and the end.
I am the Alpha and the Omega. Yeah.
Right.
The beginning and the end.
And then it shows the this ruby that's supposed to be under the paw of the Sphinx.
Yeah.
And I think it's like, he's trying to figure out what is this ruby? What is this ruby? And Dad's like, well, I think it's Regulus. It's the star.
The red star.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to get to that in a minute. But what I forgot to say, whatever I said about that stuff on the Stargate episode, I was kicking myself in the foot because I forgot to say the part about the Alpha and the Omega in that hieroglyphic. So if somebody could find the clip on the Stargate episode where I'm talking about that very same thing, if you want to send it to me later, that'd be great because then I could remember everything I said there. But there was an Alpha and Omega on that hieroglyph. Anyway, so... now we're going to get into the parallels of Mithraism to other traditions. So the birth of Mithras from Montfaucon's Antiquities, Mithras was born out of a rock, which breaking open permitted him to emerge, kind of like Wukong.
Exactly.
This occurred in the darkness of a subterranean chamber, so in a cave. The Church of Nativity at Bethlehem confirms the theory that Jesus was born in a grotto or cave. According to Dupuy, Mithras was put to death by crucifixion and rose again on the third day.
Come on.
Interesting to note, Nick, I told you about my friend George, who wrote a book and only published it a few years ago about the Protovangelium of James, the brother of Jesus. This book was written in the 1920s. I'm reading from the Secret Teachings of All Ages.
Oh, wow.
And even Manly P. Hall is reading other
corroborating
resources about the story of Jesus being born in a cave.
What?
Yeah. So it's just another version of, but they put him in a manger. They put him with the farm animals. And, who knows?
Yeah.
I don't know why they said that, but
yeah.
All that's important is that there are other iterations of his birth being in a cave. There's other iterations of his death, too. Some of the Gospels say he didn't even die. He just escaped.
Just ascended.
Yeah, or escaped.
Huh.
And just kind of went on his way. Yeah, I mean, there's like 50 different versions of Christ. And the Roman officials gave us 4. And then in the 1950s, these children were playing in the desert. They smashed open these clay pots on accident, and all these scrolls fell out. And it's
there's
literally,
a bunch more.
yeah, there's like 50 different versions of Jesus. And it's like, oh my God, which one is the real one?
Right.
And then people are like, well, the ones that the Romans gave me.
Why?
Yeah,
Why?
Because my pastor said.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
My pastor said,
what's in the Bible.
Dude, when I was like 18, I asked my pastor about the book of Enoch. He said, I shouldn't have done that. He said the book of Enoch came straight out of the fires of the mouth of hell.
That's so dramatic, dude.
I was like,
the fires of the mouth.
Something like that. The flames of hell. Spit it right out of his mouth. And I was like, okay.
I mean, that's what we're made to believe, because it's like the gospel is pure and is wholly true, and anything that you add to it is just from hell.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Now pay up.
Yeah. Pass around the damn whatever that shit is called, that bucket where you put your money in.
The tithe bucket.
That one.
What is that thing called?
I don't know.
The money bucket.
The money bucket.
Dude, I went to a church. One of the last times I went to church, I went to my grandma's church, and I swear to God, this is so insane. They passed around 2 empty, those giant containers that you buy cheese balls in? They passed around 2 of those, and wait, it gets crazier. They made the men and women put money into different containers.
To weigh them?
Yes.
Yeah, my church did that with the little kids.
That's nuts, dude.
The little kids would go around, but it was like little kids. And they would collect change and quarters and stuff, and then they would weigh it, see if the boys or the girls collected.
That's weird.
It's different when it's kids, though. It's kind of cute, but when it's big cheese ball buckets of money, that's a different story.
Yes.
Dude, my church had like 20 people.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Put the kids to work.
Yeah. Early. Get them started.
They yearn for it.
Rooster crows, get your ass out of bed, boy. That was my grandpa. Dude, one time, it was like on my 14th birthday, too, or somewhere. I know it was the weekend of my 14th birthday. My grandpa walks in my room at like 9 a.m. on a Saturday. He says, get your lazy ass out of bed and cut the yard, boy.
Oh, my God.
Here's my next door neighbor.
That is so intense.
You met my grandpa many times. Dude, he was like 6'5".
He's a big
and he was
guy.
like 450 pounds. Could you imagine the terror of waking up to him in your room yelling at you? I cut the grass, boy.
I bet you did.
I cut the grass.
I bet
you just described my dad.
Yeah, that's true. He's about 6'7", right?
I've been in that scenario exactly.
Yeah.
But Papa Ted had a fire to him, dude.
Oh yeah, dude.
Oh man, he was one of those people, like when he talked, you better fucking listen.
Oh yeah. Nobody challenged him.
Did I tell you what I did to get revenge in the yard?
No.
So my parents' backyard, there's a section you can't see. They'd never go back there. So they'd only see if they pulled up to the house, they could see down the side yard. In the section they couldn't see, I would write my name in the mower with the mower. So I'd write my name weeks at a time. So the grass around my name would be like a foot tall, and it would be my name in the grass. And I was just praying that the Google Earth plane would come over and take a picture of my name spread out over like 40 feet.
Your dad told me your grass talks to him. He said my plants talk to me.
They say Alex.
I'm almost done here, boys. They're on the edge of their seat right now.
Yeah. Give them what they want.
I'm going to give the people what they want.
Pass around the money bucket. Wrap it up.
Cheese bucket.
Yeah, the cheese puffs. So we're talking about the parallels between other systems, right? Like the ancient mysteries after which it was patterned, the Order of the Rose Cross possessed a secret ritual which was lived by the candidate for a prescribed number of years before he was eligible to the inner degrees of the society. The various floors of the Tower of Olympus represent the orbits of the planets. The ascent of the philosophers from one floor to another also parallels certain rituals of the Eleusinian mysteries and the rites of Mithras, wherein the candidate ascended the 7 rungs of a ladder or climbed the 7 steps of a pyramid in order to signify release from the influences of the planetary governors. Man becomes the master of the 7 spheres only when he transmutes the impulses received from them. He who masters the 7 worlds and is reunited with the divine source of his own nature consummates the hermetic marriage. Did I leave out the part about Mithras there? Was there anything about Mithras? Oh, it was. No, the rites of Mithras. I was about to say, wait, there wasn't a whole lot about Mithras. Okay, so two quotations will further establish the relationship existing between the mysteries of Serapis and those of other ancient peoples. The first is from Richard Payne Knight's Symbolical Language of Ancient Art and Mythology. Hence, Varro, in De Lingua Latina, says that coelum and terra, that is universal mind and productive body, were the great gods of the Samothracian mysteries and the same as Serapis and Isis of the later Egyptians, the Tautos and Astarte of the Phoenicians, and the Saturn and Ops of the Latins. The second quotation is from Albert Pike's Morals and Dogma. Says Martianus Capella in his Hymn to the Sun, dwellers on the Nile adore as Serapis, and Memphis worships as Osiris. In the sacred rites of Persia thou art Mithras. In Phrygia, Attis, and Libya bows down to thee as Ammon, and Phoenician Byblos as Adonis. Thus the whole world adores thee under different names. The secret teachings of all ages. So the point I'm making is all of these different ritual mystery traditions are saying it's the same entity. It's the same force. It's the same being. Here's all the different names.
Yeah, you just call it different stuff. Yeah, different Mithras, languages.
Serapis, which is a bull. Adonis. Yeah. And it goes on and on. There's more. I don't even know if I listed them all. So the rites of Mithras, when the Persian mysteries immigrated into southern Europe, they were quickly assimilated by the Latin mind. The cult grew rapidly, especially among the Roman soldiery, and during the Roman wars of conquest, the teachings were carried by the legionnaires to nearly all parts of Europe. So powerful did the cult of Mithras become that at least one Roman emperor was initiated into the order, which met in caverns under the city of Rome. Concerning the spread of this mystery school through different parts of Europe, C.W. King in his Gnostics and Their Remains says, Mithraic bas-reliefs cut on the faces of rocks or on stone tablets still abound in the countries formerly the western provinces of the Roman Empire. Many exist in Germany, still more in France, and in this island, Britain. They have often been discovered on the line of the Picts' Wall and the noted one of Bath. Alexander Wilder, in his Philosophy and Ethics of the Zoroastrians, states that Mithras is the Zend title for the sun, and he is supposed to dwell with that shining orb. Mithras has a male and a female aspect, though not himself androgynous. As Mithras, he is the Ford of the sun, powerful and radiant, and most significant of the Yazatas, or the Ezods, or the Genii of the sun. As Mithra, without the S at the end, as Mithra, this deity represents the feminine principle. The mundane universe is recognized as her symbol. She represents nature as receptive and terrestrial, and as fruitful only when bathed in the glory of the solar orb. This Mithraic cult is a simplification of the more elaborate teachings of Zarathustra, the Persian fire magician. The secret teachings of all ages. Now, I'm going to wrap us up here with something that I stumbled across in the secret teachings of all ages, which, by the way, if you guys haven't picked up out there already, if you know that this isn't like the most badass esoteric book of all, I'm going to say it again. This is the most badass esoteric book of all. And if you want to go deeper, you really, really should read this book. It will blow your mind right out of your skull. And for many years, I avoided this text. I don't think I was mature enough or ready. I can't recommend it enough. But
we've been pulling a lot of heat from that one lately.
Yeah. I mean, it's literally like the encyclopedia of all of these different traditions. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's incredibly informative. So I stumbled across this part, and this part genuinely blew my mind. And I'll get to why after I read it, although for some reason I'm having trouble pulling it up. Hold on. Okay, there we go. I'm going to get into why it blew my mind because it'll be pretty obvious after I read it. It has to do with the age of Aquarius and with the alignment between Regulus and the Sphinx from a perspective of Manly P. Hall writing about Mithras. So I was like, wow, okay, this is crazy. And the more I dive into this stuff, the more I get the sense that this alignment is more than just a message from a lady, but it's actually something maybe more ancient. Maybe it's a prophecy that has existed a long time ago, and the lady didn't come here and create it in 2012, but she just kind of made us aware of it.
Yeah,
I used to think about
the
it.
Message.
Revealed. Maybe this has been expected for a long time to come, not just 12 years. But anyway, so from the Secret Teachings of All Ages, the Honorable E.M. Plunkett in Ancient Calendars and Constellations says, the Scorpion, the constellation Scorpio of the zodiac, opposed to Taurus, joins with Mithras in his attack upon the bull. And always the Genii of the spring and autumn equinoxes are present in joyous and mournful attitudes. The Egyptians, the Assyrians, and the Babylonians, who knew the sun as a bull, called the zodiac a series of furrows, through which the great celestial ox dragged the plow of the sun. Wow, let's take a quick break, because before Mithras, before Mithraism, before Zoroaster had his revelation in the age of Aries, we just talked about this, it was the age of Taurus. Mm-hmm. They knew the sun as a bull. And then Mithras comes along, the sword in the neck of the bull. Now the sun is a lion, I guess. Mm-hmm. They depict it as a lion. But I'm getting there. Hold on. About the depiction of the lion. The Egyptians, the Assyrians, the Babylonians, who knew the sun as a bull, called the zodiac a series of furrows through which the great celestial ox dragged the plow of the sun. Hence the populace offered up sacrifice and led through the streets magnificent steers bedecked with flowers and surrounded with priests, dancing girls of the temples, and musicians. The philosophic elect did not participate in these idolatrous ceremonials, but advocated them as most suitable for the types of mind composing the mass of the population. These few possessed a far deeper understanding, as the serpent of Scorpio upon their foreheads, the uraeus, bore witness, which, if you think about like the Egyptians with the snake on their eyebrow and the forehead, that's the uraeus.
Okay.
The serpent coming from the third eye. Thoughts?
Cool.
Okay. The sun is often symbolized with its rays in the form of a shaggy mane. Concerning the Masonic significance of Leo, Robert Hewitt Brown, 32nd degree Mason, has written, on the 21st of June, when the sun arrives at the solstice, the constellation Leo, being but 30 degrees in advance of the sun, appears to be leading the way, and to aid by his powerful paw in lifting the sun up to the summit of the zodiacal arch. This visible connection between the constellation Leo and the return of the sun to his place and power and glory at the summit of the royal arch of heaven was the principal reason why that constellation was held in such high esteem and reverence by the ancients. The astrologers distinguished Leo as the sole house of the sun and taught that the world was created when the sun was in that sign. The lion was adored in the east and the west by the Egyptians and the Mexicans. The chief druid of Britain was styled a lion. Stellar theology and Masonic astronomy. When the Aquarian age is thoroughly established, the sun will be in Leo, as will be noted from the explanation previously given in this chapter regarding the distinction between geocentric and heliocentric astrology. Then indeed will the secret religions of the world include once more the raising to initiation by the grip of the lion's paw. Lazarus will come forth. So that had me thinking. The whole thing is like when the gaze of the Sphinx aligns with the constellation Leo just before dawn, or the star Regulus in the constellation Leo
Yeah.
just before dawn. It'll be a new knowledge, the age of Aquarius. And I'm just thinking about all this stuff.
And it just said the constellation Leo leads the sun by 30 degrees.
In June.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
But more specifically, they just said that at the creation of the world, the sun was in Leo.
Yeah.
The ancients teach that Leo is the soul house of the sun, and that the world is created when the sun was in Leo. So it's just very interesting.
Yeah, that's so wild. Yeah, I mean, I always had the hunch that like this message that the lady relayed to your dad is like, it's so much more ancient than what's happening right now. I always had the thought like this is a very, very, very old prophecy, but like that this is corroborating that.
See, I never thought of it as like an ancient idea because I had never heard of it. I just thought of it as like a new, like, yeah, when the star aligns, and I just thought of it as like a new idea. Like, oh, okay, cool. I never thought about it as being like an ancient prophecy that could be.
I had even had the thought before, like, I wish there was some way that we could really like get in the nitty gritty of these like teachings and find this prophecy somewhere. I've had that thought many times. Like this prophecy's got to be out there written down somewhere.
Well, I mean, again, my dad's friend Robert Edward Grant goes in the pyramid. I'm going to try to find the specifics on what he said, but he finds, the Alpha and the Omega over the Sphinx, and it's like there's this ruby he thinks it's a ruby, this gem under its paws. And Dad's like, it's not a ruby, it's Regulus. So maybe, I don't know. I mean, it's a stretch, but maybe it is hinting to the idea of something with the star Regulus and the Sphinx, and the whole Alpha and the Omega thing is very interesting. You know what? Actually, my dad, never mind. I can't say that. I can't say that.
Hush, hush now.
Can't say that.
Hush, hush now.
I'm myself.
I'm going to pass around the cheese
I had to
bucket.
stop myself.
I'm going to pass you the cheese bucket.
And that's all she wrote. That's all she wrote.
Damn, dude. That was really fascinating. That was really, honestly, super fascinating. I like how it described Mithraism as kind of like a deeper, more intimate kind of exploration of Zoroastrianism.
Yeah.
Like it gets into the weeds much more than Zoroastrianism does. I like the emphasis on astro-theology, and then that whole last part was nuts.
It's really cool to me, like the whole Zoroastrianism thing. I remember first learning about that and just being blown away at like 18 years old or 19 or whatever. Yeah,
because there's a lot of parallels there too to Christianity. Obviously, it's a lot of the same stuff, but with this diving even deeper, the parallels are just infinitely more.
The thing that I think is really cool, though, I'm obviously like really into Edgar Cayce. I think episode 12 was about Edgar Cayce. It might have been 13. And I just remember talking on there about Edgar Cayce's idea of reincarnation of the Christ spirit. Because I do believe in the same iteration, that the Christ spirit is this eternal being. It's like Neo. Right?
Yeah.
Like, it's like Neo. You find out in either the second or the third Matrix, they're like, well, you're the seventh one.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
There's been 6 other cycles.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, shit. So like,
It's like
sure.
Link.
Yeah. There's Thomas Anderson, the person who worked at his little office job, and then he realized he's this oversoul, this Neo, this being, the one that comes back over and over and over to liberate the entire Matrix. So there's 2 levels of being here for this entity, for Neo. He's the human Thomas Anderson, but he's also Neo. This, what?
It was 12.
Oh, was it?
He said 12 or 13.
Mystic Psychics, right? That's the name of it?
I'm pretty sure.
It's Mystic
I
Psychics.
just saw 12 and I was like, he did it again. Mystic Psychics.
I told you I like Edgar Cayce.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's my point about the Christ thing. Is like, I like Edgar Cayce's interpretation. Like, there's this eternal spirit that is like the God force, like literally this powerful archetypal soul that comes to Earth many times. It pops in, it has a human experience, and it's like, hey, everybody, wake up.
Yeah.
Wake up.
Yeah. It's like the Avatar. It's like Neo. It's like Link. It's like all of these like fictional characters just reincarnating when we need them. when we need them to usher us out of an age of darkness into an age of light.
Yeah, and also just into new ways of understanding things.
Yeah, yeah.
But the thing I was trying to say is that Edgar Cayce, according to his readings, and I'm going to be honest with you, bro, after going to the Monroe Institute and having some out-of-body stuff and getting like really embedded in their whole history and their body of knowledge and material, I'm starting to believe in Edgar Cayce more than ever. Because there was a part of me that's like, this is really cool. I vibe with it, but, can't prove the psychic experience channeling thing. But now I'm like, I'm all in.
Yeah.
He says that Zoroaster was one of them.
Oh, yeah.
Like the incarnation of this Christ being, and that makes sense to me. I do think that there is a very strong connection between Christianity, Zoroastrianism, and then of course, because it comes from Zoroastrianism, Mithraism.
Yeah.
And I think that there is not only a connection between those three, but a strong connection to other ones as well.
Mm-hmm. There obviously is, yeah, just by comparing it to the other religions that we talked about. Yeah, it's a lot of connections.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just powerful stuff. Zoroastrianism is it's very prolific in the way that it shaped our philosophic and our religious thought, and I think like 90% of the world are not even aware of what it is or the origins of it or what it means,
or that their practices come from it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Predate it.
It's the first ever monotheistic religion.
Yeah.
Like the first genuinely historically verifiable recorded monotheistic religion. And that's crazy.
Yeah, if you asked 100 people if they'd ever heard of Zoroastrianism, you might get a few, maybe.
Yeah, heaven and hell, the doctrine of heaven and hell, the resurrection after death, the final judgment, all this, other stuff that's in Christianity, like a lot of it comes from there.
Yeah.
And people might think of that as a bad thing, but it's not.
No.
It's not. Like,
no.
We have to think about God as like transcending, or just truth rather, transcending culture. Mm-hmm. And then these cultures are getting together and they're like fleshing out their ideas of this.
Their interpretations.
They're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. No, this makes sense. And then along the way, they're like, actually, we're going to kill all of you because we have it the right way. That's what it turned into.
Yeah.
The Roman Empire, and they killed millions and millions and millions. But
Thanks, Romans.
That's not how it should be.
Yeah.
That's not how philosophy should be. That's not how truth should be. That's not how mystics are. If you join the Rosicrucian order right now, I signed up and took a couple of their courses a few years ago, and I didn't get any farther than that. If you join them right now and you read through all their material, they tell you, we take from the Persians, the Greeks, Zoroaster. We take from Helena Blavatsky, the Knights Templar, the Gnostics. They tell you straight up, all this stuff that works, we keep it.
Yeah.
We also continue to explore and to find what else works. If it is genuinely observable and verifiable and substantiated, we love it. It works. That's what a mystic should do. Otherwise, whatever.
You're just blocking out a bunch of stuff that could be really useful in your pursuit of the truth.
Right.
You're just putting horse blinders on and just choosing to ignore that other stuff for whatever reason it may be.
Hell, fire, and
right.
brimstone.
Yeah. For us, it was because we'll burn in hell if we do that. But,
yeah.
I mean, whatever your reason, don't put the horse blinders up. Open them up and look into all of it. There's truth in all of it.
Now you get that cheese ball bucket up there and that way heavier than the little girls' ones.
Right.
And you're in good favor with the Lord. You're in good favor.
Yeah. Blessed and highly favored. Praise Jesus. Lord have mercy.
But woe unto them with a light cheese bucket. They're robbing the house of the Lord. My pastor used to say that, man. He used to say, if you don't pay tithes, you're robbing God.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
what? Yeah, all my
God had more money than me.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm broke.
God is balling, dude. He got all our money.
Yeah, what the heck,
Damn,
man?
what's he need it for?
Someone's robbing me.
Yeah. The church ain't getting robbed. The church robbing me.
Dude, I was talking about this with Jenny the other day. We were talking about how for example, bro, I don't have a brother-in-law or sister-in-law because Jenny's an only child. So she has some family in Germany that I'm like, oh, they're my in-laws. You know? Like, that's my brother-in-law. That's my sister-in-law. Whatever. Her cousins. And this summer, one of her cousins was telling me We were just talking about the church. They're not really hip to a lot of this stuff in Germany. They're not hip to like all this Age of Aquarius stuff. They're very Catholic.
Yeah.
And we were talking about the stuff. His eyes were blown, or his eyes were really wide. His mind was blown. He was like, "Wow, this makes sense. I've heard of this before." And God, man, he was just like, "I'm so sick of paying the church when I do my taxes." And I was like, "You what?"
When you do your taxes?
Yeah, I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Yeah, if you're a member of the Catholic Church, when you do taxes, you pay taxes to the church."
Oh my God.
Apparently, that's how it is in Europe, bro. Like, if you're a Catholic, like it's like, you register. Like, yeah, I'm Catholic. Great, you're gonna pay taxes.
Hey, that's a big ass cheese bucket.
That's a cheese bucket.
That's a big ass cheese bucket.
Isn't that crazy?
Taxes.
Yeah, it's legal. Like, you have to pay. If you don't, you are not a member of the Catholic Church. Talk about crazy.
That's evil, dude.
Right?
That's evil.
He told me that. I was like, "What? What do you mean?" He's like, "Oh, yeah, I'm sick of it. I don't want to pay anymore."
Dude, that's evil.
Isn't it?
That's a big ass cheese bucket.
Taxes.
Full of cheese balls.
Legal taxes to the church.
That's gross, man.
It's crazy.
My Catholic church would send a year's worth of envelopes that you could put your money in to go to church with. So you get, average once a week, they'd send you 52 envelopes and you'd write on it how much money you put in the envelope, and they want like 20% of your total income.
That's some sales
broken
strategy
up
right
into
there,
a
bro.
week.
It
Yeah.
is. They're basically
Yeah.
sending you blank checks. And just
But
saying,
I remember, the funny thing is I remember getting excited. My mom would give me money to put in the basket when it comes down the pew.
oh, yeah. Well,
I did
And
too.
I'd be like,
Yeah.
"Oh yeah, look
Tithe
what
time?
I did."
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah, I want to put money in the bucket.
Yeah, everybody else is
You
doing
just-
it. Must be
yeah.
cool.
You just bought the preacher a new plane.
I mean, them pearly gates ain't cheap.
That's right. They're pearl.
Oh, yeah, solid gold, pearl, jasper.
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 Jasper for the pastor.
Yeah, dude. So,
Pastor
I
needs
mean,
his new plane.
I'm at the end of my road here.
All right.
We're at the crossroads here.
The cave is.
It's time to make
the
a
caves
deal.
come to a dead end.
Yeah,
right,
caves come to a dead end.
Time to find the water and crawl out.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Just follow the damn trickle in the dark. That's crazy though, right?
Yeah.
They got on their hands and knees and they're like, "I hear trickling water,"
Yeah.
and they followed the trickling water and they made it out.
They could have just used their iPhone the whole time. God, idiots.
In the 1800s.
Yes.
Could you imagine how gross they were too? Like the stink,
Oh.
dude, sitting in a cave.
Do you
together?
think people smelled worse than people smell now? Or do
Are
you
you
think it's
kidding me?
circumstantial? Dude, no. all I'm saying is that if
so
you
much worse.
if you adopted the hygiene practices of someone in the 1800s, you would smell like someone in the 1800s.
Foul. Yeah.
I'm not, but what I'm saying is humans don't smell different than they did. It's just circumstantial.
But
How do you know?
yeah, you don't know shit, dude.
Because we got like McDonald's, we got like fried chicken,
Yeah.
we got like
So,
all this
I'm hearing-
crazy food that probably makes us smell worse, dog.
I don't know about that, bro. They did not have good hygiene.
They probably smell good.
No, they did not. I
So if
guarantee
you-
they did
Oh, you
not.
know way better
If you
than we do.
transported someone from the 1800s to now and
Dude, we would
they
puke.
adopted the hygiene practices that we have now, would they smell like us?
Yeah.
I think they
Okay,
smell
but
better.
they can't go both ways.
They would smell like us if they would just be hygienic, but they didn't have showers and soap and shit, so they were stanky as hell.
Anyway.
Plus, they didn't know the importance of hygiene.
I don't want to die in this cave.
Yeah, okay.
Dude, I'm telling you, they'd smell way better than us.
No, they wouldn't.
By a long mile, dude. They had lye soap. They were like bathing with acid, dude. And
Take me back.
No,
I don't
yeah.
want to be here
they
anymore.
smell better than us, dude.
Y'all are tripping.
You ever been to a
yeah.
Smash Bros tournament?
Yeah. It's foul.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, bro.
But at least those.
You ever been to the
motherfuckers have
first
showers.
Olympics?
No.
I guarantee they smell bad. They must have smelled real bad.
Like in Rome?
Well,
Yeah. Wait,
They
the
didn't
first
have-
Olympics were in Greece.
they didn't
Were
have
they?
the clothes
Oh, that
to
makes
lock
sense. It's
in
the
the
Olympics.
stink.
Olympics.
I'm thinking of the Colosseum, the gladiators.
I'd have paid to see that.
Yeah. Well, you would have. You did. I'm sure they charged.
I think we're at a good point, man. It's time to
Ryan's begging for us to wrap it up.
it's It's time to say goodnight.
All right. Good night. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
What up, homies?
If you like the show and want more, check out patreon.com/Bledsoe said so.
This will get you exclusive weekly bonus shows and access to our Discord community with hundreds of open-minded people just like you.
If you want to represent the show, go to bledsoesaidso.com for merch. We have t-shirts, hats, hoodies, and more.
For all future updates, follow us on Instagram at Bledsoe Said So.
Same time next week.